There is something incredibly cool about embossing folders. Ever since I saw the first one, I was hooked. And I think it's because of the instant texture. You know, I love a good old bit of that. And you can use them with paper, but that's so obvious. Let's try another way to use those folders. So I grabbed a few embossing folders. Look at that gorgeous texture. That makes you want to get started right away, doesn't it? So I have my embossing folder and I have a piece of acetate and I put that in the embossing folder. And then I close it. And I put the embossing folder at an angle on my platform. This makes it easier to run the embossing folder through the machine. And then it comes out embossed and it has lots of gorgeous texture. Now you can use it as is, or you can do something more to make it more interesting. Here I have another embossed piece of acetate and now I'm going to add some color. And I'm going to use the alcohol ink pearl because it has a wonderful shine. So make sure to shake those bottles well before you start to mix the pearl with the alcohol ink. And then I'm just adding bits of ink on the acetate, and I like the way that the alcohol ink is filling up those letters. So I'm not going to fill the complete background, but just fill those letters and a few spots around it. And then I'm going to put this panel aside to dry. And while that is drying, I have embossed another piece of acetate and I'm going to add some color to that as well. And this one's a bit warped, but we will fix that later on. So I'm going to use the same colors. I'm starting with the blue and then I'm moving the acetate to let the alcohol ink flow a bit. And as always, I have linked the products that I'm using in the description box below in case you like to check them out. And you can use regular alcohol inks or the ones that you have at home as well. I'm using these ones because I think they're really pretty. And I decided to fill up the background a bit more with the two colors. And then I'm moving the acetate again and I'm going to let the excess ink drip off a little bit. And then I'm going to put that panel aside to dry as well. And here's the first piece of acetate that I embossed. And I'm going to use some brownish colors now and a bit of orange. I'm just adding it on the acetate and then I'm going to move it again. So tilt it a little bit to different sides to let the colors flow into all the pretty creases. And I decided to add some bits of yellow as well to make it more fall leafy. Tilting again to let those colors move. And the colors are mixing quite a bit, so I decided to let it dry. And then I decided to add drops of the different colors in the open spaces to get a bit more color variation. And the inks aren't moving as much as they are on Yupo paper. They basically stay well in their place where you add them. And because of the creases, they flow a little bit, which will give you a very interesting and colorful pattern. So I'm back to my first card panel and I'm going to add some regular alcohol ink. And I'm adding that a bit in the open spaces. And then I'm going to tilt the acetate again to let the colors move a little bit more. And because there are still some open spots, I decided to add a bit of a darker regular color alcohol ink as well. So I'm filling up the open spaces with the tip of the bottle. And then I'm next to my leafy card that's dry now. And I have an alcohol ink alloy, which has a very shiny metallic look. And these don't flow at all. They just land where you add them and they stay there. So you can tilt the acetate a bit to let it run, but it doesn't run as much as the alcohol ink as it's a bit thicker. So moving it around with the tip of the bottle is a better option with these inks. But I think it will give a lovely bit of extra shine. And here are my card panels once they are dried. And look at what a gorgeous effect you get with the embossed acetate and the alcohol ink. So I've added a piece of double-sided adhesive to the back of the leafy panel. And now I'm going to add it on a piece of collage paper. I really like those orange, pink, purplish colors on the collage paper from the Out by Marlene Out of This World paper pad. I wanted to try the double-sided adhesive to see if it shows through the acetate, but it doesn't show at all. And I think those colors that fill the holes in the alcohol ink background are really adding to the design, but you can also use it as is and add it straight on a white card or any other color that you choose. And now let's turn these backgrounds into cards. I've added one of the panels with double-sided adhesive. And I'm going to add a sentiment that I had lying around. And I add that with glossy accents, which makes a great glue for non-porous surfaces. And I add my acrylic block and I'm going to put that aside to let it dry. And for the next card, I'm going to make a frame using some leftover cardstock strips. And I'm going to glue those together. And I'm using the card to measure for the right size. Next I'm going to add some small strips of black foam along the edge of the frame. So the frame will be a little bit raised and that way it will fit over the embossed panel. And once all those strips are in place, I'm going to add it on the card over the embossed panel. To finish my card I have a vintage piece of music paper that I add, partly over the panel and slightly under the middle of the card. Then I'm going to add the leaves and I add some glue on the parts where the leaves are touching the paper. And then I finish with a little raffia bow. And I think this makes a really pretty fall card. And I realized I didn't make any fall cards this year, so it was about time. So I'm going to make another one with the next card. I start with a little piece of vintage music paper. I've colored the edges so it will stand out from the background a little bit more. And I have the leaves and I'm going to add a bit of raffia on the top as well. And with these leaves I've added some tape to the back. And then I add them on my vintage music paper. And then I'm going to trim down the left side of the raffia. And because in the previous life I was a hairdresser, I'm really good at that, of course. So I think this makes another fun fall card. And together I think these make pretty cool and doable mixed media cards. So go grab some acetate and dig up those embossing folders and have lots of fun. And in case you'd like to see more, here's some more inspiration for you, all binge watch ready. And as always, make sure to keep on crafting.